Welcome to Earth Science Day, everybody. So, 4 videos for 4 cheat sheets. We'll start easy. They're going to get harder, believe me. But what you'll want to do with these is use these through the moon phase labs and possibly, and definitely the tide lab we're going to do as well. There's going to be a lot of content on this thing. So, it's really your job to take nice, careful notes now. Save this PDF once it's all marked up with your notes in a place where you can go back to it. Because when we get to these labs, possibly even 3 labs, honestly, um, these questions are going to come back up and they're not easy ideas, right? So if like when people are in class and they're doing this, I'm always saying, well, just check your cheat sheet. So you might not be here. So you got to think to yourself, oh yeah, that cheat sheet probably has these answers. We're going to be getting into moon phases and tides with all of this. So what are some important things to note? This is all about the sun with the Earth revolving around the sun, which is where things are going to get tricky. But basically, the moon revolving around the Earth. Since the moon revolves around the Earth, we see different parts of the lit half. And one of the first things we'll note, one of the most important things, is that one half of the moon is always lit. Now, there are eclipses, and while we start to figure out moon phases, we're going to ignore them. We'll come back and do eclipses after we've got a pretty good grip on all of this. So other than eclipses, half the moon is already lit, always lit, and it's going to be the half that's facing the sun, right? So that's going to be kind of the trick here as we do this. In fact, maybe it's not a bad idea, so we can start to get that idea down to draw in here and have the back half of the moon colored in. And then no matter where it is in this revolution, in this orbit, that half is always dark. The half away from the sun, the half towards the sun is always light. And what phases will be are what do we see of that lit half. And that's what your next note's actually going to be. So phases are how much of the lit parts we see. All right, now you guys through your lives have probably seen a full moon, right, where you only see the lit part, or maybe you've seen half moons, quote unquote. You're going to learn that's not a very good phase in a few minutes. That's all about saying where is this in its orbit so that what we see from Earth, what part of the lit part do we see? All right, very important to keep in mind. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I want a new one with big letters. You don't have to mess around with these sizes if you don't want to. Phases caused by moon's revolution. We've started bringing up this idea that keeping revolution and rotation as separate, distinct ideas is very important. Still going to be the case here. We're going to want to make sure that we keep this in mind, that the moon's revolution is the thing that causes the phases. All right. That is going to be, you know what? I'm going to throw one more thing on here. I'm going to make cheat sheet number 1 go from easy to a tiny bit harder. If you were to look up in your reference tables, revolution of the moon, what would your reference tables tell you it is? In fact, why don't I have you do that? I know the answer. And then one rotation of the moon, how long that is. And you're going to find out that those two numbers are exactly the same, which is, if it's coincidental, that'd be hard to believe, right? But it's actually because of this whole tidal locking mechanism. It gets kind of complicated. We won't worry about it just yet. But what happens is that as that moon spins, it also, as it does like one revolution, it also does one rotation. And the result of that is that we actually always see the same face of the moon. Every time you've looked at the moon, you've seen the same side. This idea of dark side of the moon changes with the phases. If it's a full moon, the dark side of the moon is that back half that you've never seen. If it's a new moon, the dark side of the moon is facing you, which is the side you've always seen, right? So, like, geographically, you've always seen the same side of the moon, but the light and the dark part change as that thing orbits around us. That's a little bit harder. All right, this top part, pretty easy. That idea maybe is slightly trickier. I don't know if you looked up or not. Okay. How's that sound? Sounds right. So yeah, those two are the same. That results in us always seeing the same phase. There you go. Cheat sheet number 1, signing off.